Josh. You're still alive. Hello. There you go. Okay, we are live. Good afternoon, everybody. This is the 20th of June. It is our third beach talk. And we'll see what happens today. Thank you for joining us. We have a good little group in the peanut gallery here. The title of what we're going to talk about is Why Beach Talks. And the easiest way to explain this is we have a big company with over 400 agents, and some of our agents are the best that I've ever seen. And I've been teaching for a long time, and a long time ago, maybe 15 years, as we can gauge from the condition of this hat, one of the agents bought me a hat that said, "Real person hat." Now, why did they give me that hat, do you think? Well, we help people, and we help people with the hardest decision they ever have to make in their lives, mostly because it's the one that affects the family the most. And it causes a lot of trauma when we're dealing with people's trouble. And when agents ask questions, or agents say, this person that I'm dealing with is a jerk, or I don't know why they're doing what they're doing and all that stuff, I would say, put your real person hat on and put yourself in the position of them. And then after a while, we kept on getting those questions. And then some guy bought me a hat and put it on, and it said real person. So I found with agents that you can be the best agent in the world, but when you are buying or selling on your own account or moving for some reason, you forget everything that you learned in real estate, and you become just like the person that is buying or selling. And you're asking questions about what you should do that you knew what to do for other people, but you didn't know what to do for yourself. So we found, as we expanded from a little office in Apollo Beach to Sun City Center, we found that the people and what they wanted and how they lived was different in Sun City Center than it was in Apollo Beach. Apollo Beach was a trailer park at one point, and then it grew into a very nice development of waterfront homes and trailer parks. And we did real well. And at one point, because we used farming, which is assigning a geographical territory to every agent and get them to know the people in every geographical territory, they became so good at what they did that we at one point had 57% of the market in Apollo Beach. 57%. We don't have anything like that now because so many other agents have moved in, and other companies, and so many houses and builders that we really stopped the concentration that we had before. So then we bought an office in Sun City Center, and the people we dealt with in Sun City Center had different views because it was over 55 community. And they had rules and regulations. You can only have kids visit you for a certain amount of time, and some communities were more restricted to people than other people. So then we had a whole bunch of new agents that focused on that geographical area, and it was different. Now, when an agent came from a geographical area that was not in Sun City, and they had to deal with all the rules and regulations in Sun City, do you think that they were able to help people as well if they didn't live there or didn't work there as they would if they did work there? So we said, hey, we're on to something. Then we go and we expand to the beaches. And we get 3 offices over on the Barrier Islands. Barrier Islands really became problematic because it was totally different. So we were the new guys on the block with every office we opened over here. So we said, what are we going to do? Put your real person hat on and do what we did to be successful before. So we broke Madeira Beach and Indian Rocks Beach into farm areas, and we had agents get to know what was happening in each little farm area. But the farm areas in Indian Rocks Beach were different than the farm areas in Madeira Beach. What were some of the differences? Indian Rocks Beach was an area where a lot of people from Tampa would come and vacation on weekends. So it became very populated with people that were from Tampa. People from Tampa bought something different than people that came to Madeira Beach, because the people that came to Madeira Beach were people from all over the place. And way back when we opened the office, they were mostly from people from the United States that were Midwesterners. The people from the East Coast seemed to go where? The East Coast of the United States went to Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach.
Because of the trains.
Because of the trains. Originally, when way back to when Flagler started the train system, that was where you came. So the point is that if you are going to look at a geographical area when you're from out of town and you find an agent that knows about that geographical area, they will help you. If you take an agent from out of your geographical area and they have to learn the geographical area along with you, why do they need you? So as we've gone on for the last 25 years in Beggins Enterprises, and now we've expanded into Sarasota and Bradenton, and now expanding into Brandon, we're finding in every office a different market. Now, does that mean that people from Canada might not like Sun City Center over Paso Grill or Clearwater? No. But we have to be knowledgeable enough to talk to our clients and give them the pros and cons of what we're doing. So years ago, we built our company based on Tuesday night career nights. So if you wanted a career in real estate, you came and talked to us on Tuesday. We advertised in the newspapers when people advertised in the newspapers, brought people in career nights, into career nights, and after about 6 months of having them regularly, we didn't have to advertise in the newspaper anymore, because the word was out that if you wanted to find out a different type of real estate company, come to a career night for Beggins Enterprise and you get the straight scoop. Then we started when the market was going up, and when the market was going down, there were a lot of differences in what was going on in the local markets. So we had little seminars on Tuesday nights, and we had 1031 exchange seminars. 1031 exchanges are a way for people to generate wealth. So we can find somebody and sell them a duplex, and then they sell the duplex and they take the profit from the duplex and they don't have to pay taxes on it. They 1031 into a fourplex, and they hold that for a couple of years, and then they sell the fourplex, they take the profit out of that, and they buy an eightplex. And over the years, many people have become multimillionaires just by using 1031 exchanges. So the point is that in real estate, if we put the real person hat on, and I'll put the real broker hat on, brokers get this great idea how to run a real estate company, and they come up with a unique selling proposition. We call it USP, and they implement that USP, and they do it over and over and over again until they're successful, and then they drift off, and they don't do what they did before to be successful. So that's the broker real person hat, which I'm a broker. And so I said, let's do the things that made us successful before. Well, I don't really want to do this because on Tuesday afternoon, if I'm doing something else, I don't want to be tied to sitting in front of my computer and talking to people because I'd rather be home or do something else. But I said, well, what did agents do? Well, agents got a farm area and they consistently went to the people in the farm area and got to know them and they got business. Then they stopped doing that, and then some other agent got in the area, started doing that a little bit, and then took the business away from our agents. So why am I any different? It starts off slow. So this is our third beach talk in 3 weeks. I congratulate myself for being that persistent to make it 3 times in a row without a glitch, almost. Except today there's a big closing at 3 o'clock. So I got my personal assistant to go and handle the closing. It may be problematic, but I said, look, if I don't do this, then if someone is going to watch me this afternoon that would normally not be watching me and I'm not doing what I said I was going to do, then they're justified in not tuning in again. So I'm just an agent that is trying to be an agent of change by doing the same things that we did to be successful before. So we came up with a concept called beach talks. So everything that I do in every one of the beach talks will be geared mostly to Pinellas County Barrier Island real estate. The first beach talk talked about 16 little towns along 27 miles of Gulf of Mexico property. And those 16 little towns that go from, and if we asked 100 people to name the 16 towns, they would come up with 17, 14, 12, 3, or whatever, because there's nothing published that says there's 16 towns along the Gulf of Mexico. But I defined those towns because I've been working all 16 towns, and I found out they're the most different. There's 16 different differences in the 16 towns. So when people come in from Toronto and they want to buy a house in St. Pete Beach, very often they end up in Clearwater Beach. Oh God, St. Pete Beach to Clearwater? Totally different. Or they end up in Madeira Beach, or they end up in Reddington Beach, or they end up somewhere else. So we have to, when customers come in here, I take a map and I say, 16 little towns. And I start with the map showing them where the airport is, because they can pretty well figure that out. There's an airport that's in Hillsborough County, and there's 3 bridges that connect this thing called Pinellas County. And all 3 bridges are connectors to the 16 little towns on the beach. Now, before you go through the 16 towns on the beach, you go through a whole bunch of other little towns, like Seminole, like Largo, like Pinellas Point, like Kenwood, like all these different places. And you look at the prices of houses before you get to go over the bridge, and what do you see? Well, you see some nice houses that look affordable. Then you go over the bridge and you see some crummy houses that are not affordable. So when someone's from Toronto looking at this and they say, hey, Seminole, I can buy a house for $320,000. It's a real nice house. And then if I took the same house and moved it over to the beach, it's $700,000 or $500,000. Why is that? Well, it's real simple. Under all is the land. And the land is the biggest thing that we have going for us on the beaches, because the land appreciates in resort areas quicker than land in non-resort areas. So if you bought a acre of land in Denver, Colorado, or you bought an acre of land, you know, on the flat land of Denver, and you bought an acre of land in the mountain resort in Denver, which land is more expensive, obviously. Now, when you get to all flat land like Florida, and you go across the Stewart Causeway in Madeira Beach to Seminole, and you look at a brand new house on a $20,000 lot, it's now $320,000. If you take the same house, brand new house, that costs $300,000 to build, and you move it to a crummy lot on the Barrier Islands, not on the water, that price of the house has a $200,000 lot under it. So now it's $500,000. Well, a lot of people would say, well, why don't I just buy that same brand new house on a $20,000 lot in Seminole rather than the $500,000 lot in Madeira Beach, not on the water? Why would people choose to come to the beaches, not on the water, if it for $200,000, $300,000 less, they can buy a house in Seminole, not on the water? The answer is, it's depending upon the lifestyle that you want. There's a beach lifestyle and there's a non-beach lifestyle. Now, one of the major problems that people have when they're buying real estate, and this gets back to the real person hat thing, is that they buy a house because they want a house for their family. They don't necessarily think of the investment potential of that house and why it is a great deal for them, because they're going to live here until they die. And you've all heard that as real estate agents. They're going to bury me in this house, right? Well, the script says, well, when would that be? So it's up to the personal knowledge and the personal wants and desires of your client to where you direct them. So directing them to Seminole or directing them to Madeira Beach are two different choices based on the lifestyle of your customer. So you have to learn about your customer, number one. Now, once you learn about your customer and you know what they want, you have to be able to match the customer to the neighborhood that they're going to buy in. It's where this gets a little bit confusing, because what are they qualified to buy? What is their end game? What is their lifestyle like? So if they're going to buy a house on a river in Florida, or buy a house on a canal in Florida, the difference between salt water and fresh water is huge. All kinds of other things. So the purpose of the beach talks is to get away from talking about the river or the place in Denver, Colorado, or anywhere else, and find out what people want in the area that you are working on. An awful lot of our agents don't have an area that they're focusing on. We call that a farm or a niche. And a farm or a niche does not have to be residential, or it does not have to be houses on lots. It does not have to be a geographical area. What are some of the niches that you could focus on as a real estate agent? What are they?
First-time home buyer.
First-time home buyers. Okay, the benefit of a first-time home buyer. Big smile on their face when they buy their home. Maybe not too knowledgeable, so they need you a lot and they're going to listen to you and you'll be their hero. Disadvantage of a first-time home buyer. What do you think?
They need you a lot.
They need you a lot.
Right.
They're buying a lower price home. And for the life of me, I cannot figure out why a customer buying $1 million house is more trouble than a customer buying a $100,000 house. There are a lot of problems that a person buying $100,000 house has compared to someone buying $1 million house, right?
Mhm.
Qualifying, the condition of the house, where it is, what's going to happen when you sell them a house and they like what you did, the referrals that they give you. The referrals that they give you are going to be mostly what kind of referrals? Similar to what you just worked. So we're building a career. As agents, we're building a career. As clients, we are trying to identify with the personality of the client, what they want, and find them what they want. Now, if you find what they want and it isn't the niche that you specialize in, would it be all right to tell them that I don't specialize in that niche, but I know John or Mary that does? So the recommendation would be, if we ran our business like a real business, you're not going to have a kidney doctor amputate your leg, or maybe he would, because he's working on kidneys, and you came in and he says, well, I can make a lot of money by amputating a leg, so I think I'll amputate a leg. That wouldn't be very ethical. Well, why is it ethical for an agent that is focusing on exclusive properties in Pass-A-Grille to take someone to Pinellas Park in an area they know nothing about and try to satisfy that customer? I mean, think about it. Is it right? Is it right for you? And is it right for your client? Maybe not. So back to beach talks. So the first beach talk talked about the 16 little communities. And the 16 little communities, if you go on c21wizard.com and you want to see what we said in the first beach talk outlining all 16 communities, just go on the website and scroll down to that particular talk, and you can read the background. It was an article based on an article that I wrote, so you can read the article if you don't want to listen to an hour of my bullshit, and see if you like it. I guarantee you'll get something out of it, because I got the information from dealing with clients over the years and from living here. I've lived in 8 different areas on the beaches in the last 20 years. So from Tierra Verde up to Clearwater, I've lived in boats, houses, condos, all different things. Plus, we've had hundreds of agents come through our company that we've dealt with buyers and sellers. So why not take that information and give it to the agents? And then what happens if we have a meeting every week and you start bringing some of your clients in? Oh, well, I don't want to bring my clients in with a bunch of other agents. They may steal my clients. Well, the culture in our company is not to steal, and I don't think that happens a lot. And from experience and having these talks over a bunch of years, I found that that a knowledgeable client helps all of us, because the questions that they came up with during our talks that we've had before were very helpful in helping them and helping us. Comes to mind I've just advertised this Tuesday afternoon thing for a few months, and now just doing the webinars, but I've had a few of them where I've had one person come in or two persons come in, and I don't know who the hell they are. They're coming from the street, and I say, how are you? And they say, well, I don't want to tell you anything. I just heard you're having this talk. I don't know whether they're agent, the IRS, or who the hell they are. So this one time, this old guy comes in, and I watched him get out of his car to his walker, and it took him 20 minutes to get into the place. And he sat down and he said, well, what are you talking about today? And I said, you. And he said, what's your situation? I said, what's your situation? He says, well, I've had this house. My wife died 38 years ago. I live across the street in Boca Ciega. My house is a little bit in disrepair, and I don't know what I want to do. I said, well, here's what I think where some of the things that are happening with the market. You can judge them any way you want to. And he says, well, here's what I think that's happening in the market. And I said, would you mind if I ask you how old you are? And he said, 92. I said, my God. So he started telling me how the stock market works. And he says, well, you sound like you know a little bit about the real estate market. What do you think my house is worth? Well, I can't tell you what your house is worth until I go over and see it. So it's a good time to see it. So I went over to his house, and he lived with his 65-year-old son and his grandson. And it was probably in the 10 worst houses that I've ever seen in 45 years in real estate. But it had 82 feet on a canal with a swimming pool that was black that they haven't used, which windows were broken, which there was garbage, which it smelled. It was in horrible shape. And so I did what we call a strategic pricing analysis on it. And I said, Riley, I'm going to have to tell you, this is a tear down house. And here's why. And I'm going to find 15 comps that are like this. I couldn't find 15 tear down comps that were as bad as this. But I knew because a lot in Pinellas County is worth $20,000. If you move it over to the beach, not on the water, it's worth $200,000. If you move it on the water, it's worth $400,000. And if you move it on the beach, it's worth $1.5 million. So I said, okay, this guy's got 82 feet on a canal. A 50-foot lot's worth 400. So if it was the tear down, his has to be worth more because it's 82 feet. So I searched for big lots on the water with houses that looked like they would be tear downs, which are flood insurance type things. And I went and presented the strategic pricing analysis that basically said if he priced it at 575, people would look at it. They'd probably offer him about 540. And if he priced it above 600, people aren't going to look at it. So he said, show me your contract. And I showed it to him. He says, get out of here and I'll let you know later. Well, he sent me a list of 32 questions regarding my background, what I sold, what I didn't sell, what people said about me, exactly houses that I've sold with the names and phone numbers of people that I've sold, and a whole bunch of other questions out of the 32 that I had a hard time answering, but I did my best. And when I went to him and I gave him the answers to the questions, he shut up and looked at that and said, get out of here, I'll let you know. So the next day he called and he says, okay, what should I list it at? And I said, about 575, and we'll probably get an offer of 540. He said, I'm going to list it at 595. And I said, by the way, how'd I do on the questions? And he said, you got about an 85. So I grabbed his son on the way out and I said, what's his background? He said, he's a nuclear engineer for NASA for his whole life. I said, wow. So anyway, we got the listing and it sold in 2 days to a couple that have renovated it and made a new house out of it. Not a new house, a house that is built on the ground. They renovated it to the tune of about $200,000. They were not my client. If the buyers came in here for my beach talks, they would not have bought that house. Now, if you were representing that buyer, those buyers, you would have to make it very clear to them that by improving that house, they have some potential flood insurance problems. And so there's a good chance that that house could be a tear down. So as we get more into the beach talks, we know that about 75% of all the single family houses along the 27 miles of beach, about 75% of them are old and built on the ground. Which means that if you come in and renovate one of those houses, you have a very nice rebuilt house on the ground. We haven't been hit with a hurricane in years, and maybe we'll never be hit with a hurricane, but it's most likely that we would. But we know that flood insurance is going up. So it doesn't make any economic sense to buy one of those houses. Now, how many agents would tell a client that and be honest with them enough and convincing enough that they would look at another house? Now, if it was my client and buying that house, then we get into another challenge, and that's called agency, and then I'd be a transaction broker. And then I'd have to shut up, and the couple from Washington, D.C., I'd have to say, I can't tell you anything about this house. Just buy it if you want, if you don't want. And then I negotiate the deal. So what we're talking about is full disclosure on niche areas. So you could say that if I don't have a niche area and I don't know anything, then I don't have to say anything, so then I'd be better off. We know that the real estate industry has a bunch of disruptors coming in that are commission cutters and banks buying property direct and all that stuff. I don't see anything left for a real estate agent to offer except for knowledge. I think you're screwed if you don't have knowledge. And I think you're screwed if you don't take that knowledge and become honest with people, even if it costs you a deal. Because you'll get more deals by being honest with people than if you hide things. And not disclosing things to people is not really honesty. And actually not knowing about what you're disclosing or not disclosing is being dishonest with your client, because you should know about the area that you're showing them. So, but that's going to cost me deals. Well, so what? Well, you get more deals. Yeah, without question. Another thing besides the real person hat that I learned about real estate agents is that the ones that are the most successful and the ones that make the most money really have very little clue as to how much money they made or how many deals they got, because they're just about helping people and making things happen that create a better lifestyle for the customers that they're dealing with. The company teaches that. A new agent that comes into one of our beach offices tends to say, if they're honest with me, that, oh, I don't really want to work in the Indian Rocks beach office because there's too many good agents here and they're getting all the deals here. So if I work across the bridge in another area, then I'll get more deals. Plus, if I'm working on the cheaper houses, there are more people that will buy the cheaper houses. So if I work over there and I work on cheaper houses, I'll make more money. Well, if we look at the honesty thing and you start working across the beaches in an area that you don't know anything about, how are you going to get referrals from people because you weren't knowledgeable about the area you're selling them in? So does that make any sense? No, but I'm going to do it anyway. Well, here's what happens to good agents that do that. Say they're still good agents. They go over to Pinellas Park, they get a deal because they're trained by us. They take that deal that closes and they knock on doors around the deal that closed and they say, look at me, how great I am. I just sold this house for $79,000. When do you plan on moving? And they say, oh, you sold that house in 4 days for $79,000, I'll consider moving. It's not long before you would be entrenched in that area. Now, if you're going to do that, why not get entrenched in this area? That's not to say that you shouldn't take those deals. It's to say that if you're going to take those deals, many times there'll be a lot more work than if you didn't take the deals, because you got to get the local area knowledge as well as the local house knowledge, as well as your buyer knowledge in that price range. It just makes no sense. Now, my background with so many offices and agents, I've heard every story from an agent that ever came about, and every story from brokers. And what brokers think is that because agents are independent contractors, I don't have to worry about what they do so much because they're not costing me any money. And if they don't produce, that's their problem. Well, do you think an agent that doesn't produce costs a broker money? Yeah, a lot of money. How many clients do they hurt while they're not producing? So if we get, since my major background was franchising, I dealt with brokers and agents, but my company was a franchise company, so I dealt with employees. And so I was brought up learning that employees do what you tell them to do. The difference with independent contractors and employees is that you can get independent contractors to do what you want them to do if you prove to them what you want them to do is right. But it's tough. So we have to over and over again sell you on the concept of creating, getting and transmitting knowledge to customers is the most important thing that you can offer. Consistent contact with a group of people is the best thing that you can use to get business. Focusing on a niche or a farm is the best way you can get business, except for sale by owners and expired listings. Now, when we're looking at beach real estate, there's a challenge because the commission on $1 million house is 10 times greater than the commission on a $100,000 house. Another thing I found out about agents is they're not very good at math. So $1 million house with a 6% commission is $60,000. A $100,000 house with a 6% commission is $6,000. Even if we're not good at math, we got 60,000 and 6,000, which is bigger. What conceivably could happen with a sale that would give you more pain that would be eaten up or eased by a $54,000 bigger commission in your pocket? Makes sense? However, all the agents, the ones in Tampa, our South Tampa office is going nuts with prices. Prices are sometimes over there more expensive than they are over here. Can you imagine? I used to live there. I said, man, I want to live here. Where's the water? Tampa Bay. I want to go to the beach. Well, when you're focusing on South Tampa and all of a sudden it takes off, you want to stay in South Tampa. Well, look what happened in downtown St. Pete. People actually from the beach said, I want to go to downtown. Why did they go downtown? Why did they leave the beach? What do you think? Huh? Well, the people started leaving to make the market hot. It wasn't hot when they started leaving. Why did they leave the market and go down to St. Pete? Social. Activity. Things to do. basically in our 16 little towns, we have 16 little downtown St. Pete's. What do they have downtown St. Pete that's social? Bars, restaurants, theater, museums, all that stuff. Each one of our 16 towns on the beaches have a downtown. Is there a downtown Pass-A-Grille? Yes. What's there? Bamboozle, biker bars, not too great. Couple of stores. What did downtown St. Pete look like 20 years ago?
Scary.
Scary. If you were a shuffleboard addict, it was good. If you were young enough to play shuffleboard, which most of the people weren't. So we look at what's happening in our area and say, all right, so people moved out of the towns on the beaches. The most famous thing that Florida is famous for is its beaches. And people actually moved out of our beaches to downtowns. The quality of the water on Tampa Bay is much different than the quality of water on the beaches, right? They moved down there for social activity with other people. So as one bar opened and a restaurant next to it, then a better restaurant came in, and then the cities got together and said, okay, well, we got people moving down here. Some of the older buildings were torn down, and they got together and said, let's build a big city here. Same thing happened over in Tampa, and Tampa and St. Pete were in competition on which could do a better downtown. Who won? St. Pete. What's the major reason why St. Pete won over Tampa?
Later liquor hours.
Later liquor hours, 3 o'clock in the morning. One of them. Second one was that Tampa expanded geographically and couldn't fill in the blanks as well as St. Pete did because they didn't have as much land. So they went up and they stayed concise in their footprint. Tampa expanded to Harbor Island, which at one point failed. They had to stop the train going over there, and expanded into Channelside. Now, do you think the beaches in the Pinellas beaches, Barrier Island beaches, have something to do with the development in downtown St. Pete and downtown Tampa? Yes, because of social activity. Downtown St. Pete, there's a lot to do. Downtown Tampa, there's a lot to do. And it's close enough to the beach that you can get to the beach. Now, it doesn't take a very smart person to say, if the social activity is what's bringing people to the downtowns, and each one of our 16 towns has a downtown, then what would happen to bring people back to the beaches? What do you think? Develop the downtowns and the beaches. Now, it's interesting to watch people that live on the beaches because they move to one of the little towns because they like the atmosphere in the little town. Once they moved into that little tiny cottage on the beach, they said, this is my town, and I don't want it to change at all. So now every time the little town said, let's develop our little downtown, the people in the town that bought a house 20 years ago said, not in my town, go to another town. So if you're a real estate agent and you're going to make 10 times more money by focusing on more expensive properties, and you get people that are more qualified to buy, and if you want to go swimming, it doesn't take you as long to get in the water, then why not focus on the beaches? So as if I keep on doing this, which I will keep on doing this on Tuesdays, you will bring a customer in and they will ask questions and you will get the answers to the questions and they will do business with you because you thought about them enough to come in and ask someone that does not have a vested interest directly with your customer, right? And we've seen this happen before. So as we bring in guest speakers, when we bring in an insurance company to tell the real story about flood insurance, which we just got some new news today, which I'm not sure how great the news is or good or bad, but what we talked about last week, which was our second topic, what's driving the low beach inventory. People are scared and they don't want to do anything when they're scared. They don't, and most of the people that are selling are buying. So now they got to put their real person hat on as a buyer and as a seller. And they say, well, maybe I'm really confused. So when we're confused, we do nothing. So let's do nothing. Really, what should be happening with so many people wanting to buy and so little inventory, Harry and Mabel ought to say, let's put our house on the market now and raise the price some, because when we look around in our town, there's only 4 houses on the market that are like ours, and they are worth more money than our house is. So we could maybe get more money for our house. But they're not going to trust us until they trust us, and they're not going to trust us until we give them information that they can use. So when we're looking at dealing with a customer and we say, hey, Jim holds this beach talk thing, and this week they can look on, in fact, we'll get the thing so you'll be able to see what's next week, this week. What I just sent out gave you the article that I write for the Paradise News. Now, it's interesting, the article that I write for the Paradise News has a different view than you'll hear from any real estate broker. Because a real estate broker has to look at their agents and say, well, I got some buyer's agents, I got some seller's agents. I better not say anything to aggravate one or the other. So I got to take the middle line. I can't say it's a good market to sell and a good market to buy. And frankly, I can't tell you whether it's a good market to buy or sell unless I know what your personal situation is. You know, how much money do you have? How much do you owe on the house? What do you plan on doing with the money after you sell? All these questions you have to know before you know whether the guy should put the house on the market. Maybe he should rent it out. A lot of people are saying, I'm just going to rent my house and I'll move to New Jersey and just rent it weekly and hire some broker to do that. Well, do you know how many rentals there are illegally along the beaches? What if the cities crack down on the illegal rentals? Oh, they're never going to do that. Now, wait a minute. You're on VRBO. You have a picture of your backyard because you were smart enough not to put the front of the house with the number on it. You have the inside pictures of the house. You have the address of the house, the street that it's on. Don't you think the city can find out that you're renting illegally? And did you know that if you don't collect the bed tax, that's a misdemeanor? And do you know that if you collect the bed tax and you do not send it to the government, that it's a felony? Do you know how much the bed tax is? What is it, Walter?
13%.
13%. So if I'm going to rent my house, I have to collect 13%, and I have to send that money to the government every
Today's the day.
20th of the month. Holy mackerel. How many agents know that? How many sellers know that? How many buyers know that? How about somebody knocking on your door and saying, I'm going to arrest you because there's a felony? Because you have been renting your house for 3 years, you've been charging the people a bed tax just like every hotel does, and you have not been sending it into the government, which means you've been cheating the government. Not good. Or you haven't been collecting it and you've been renting illegally. Misdemeanor. So what does that do to the guy that you just sold a house to that's been rented through VRBO for 3 years, and you didn't know whether it was a legal rental or an illegal rental? Now, some of our agents would say, well, I'm going to go work in Pinellas Park now because I don't want this over my head, a misdemeanor or a felony. Now, what happens if the cities crack down on the illegal rentals? What happens if you happen to own a legal rental? Will your occupancy go up? Will the rent that you charge go up? It's called supply and demand. If they make all the illegal rentals cease, and that drops 60% of the rentals, and people still want to live on the beach and run on the beach. Wow, what a neat market that is, right? But what if you don't know about that? Is not knowing an excuse? What happens when the cities get in trouble and they can't raise the money to enforce the rules that they have? But they see on the horizon a whole bunch of rules that if they put in, they'll get a lot of money. So what would the city do? They'd raise our taxes, right? They collect the money. They use the money to stop our rentals. Now, am I just spouting off about that thing?
How long do you have to rent before you don't have to go in the house?
I don't know. How long?
6 months, 1 day.
6 months and 1 day. So anything less than 6 months and 1 day, which means a lot of people are doing 6-month rentals. If they only made it 1 more day, they'd be okay, right, Walter? How many people know that? I didn't. Okay, so if you're dealing with a house and you're selling them the house based on the income they're going to get from a rental, and it's illegal, then you're in trouble. If we take the 16 little communities and we take the most perfect little community that I think is around or was around, and say, whoa, what a great place, because there's 66 houses in a row that have no motels next to them and no condos. It's just la la la, single family houses up there that are multi-million-dollar houses. It's just great. Guess what's happening in Reddington Beach? Rentals. One guy took a brand new house, and he owned the house next door, and he tore down the house next door, and he built a new house, and he connected the 2 houses. We call it the double wide. This thing has like 20,000 feet, 15,000 feet. Great story. He's renting the house for $3,000 or $4,000 a night. You can sleep 25 people there. Well, that's in the 66 homes along Reddington Beach. It's an illegal rental. He's getting so much money that he doesn't care. So the city sues him. He sues them back. Under what pretenses could he sue them back? Whatever he wants, however. First Amendment, I have the right to do with my property whatever I want. Freedom of expression, freedom of ownership. Who are you to tell me who I have in my house? Well, maybe that's wrong, but now the city has to raise money to fight him. Now the next door neighbor, who happens to be a friend of ours, who lives in a little house in between 2 great big mansions that were built, calls the police almost every night, because if you have 25 people and they're paying $4,000 a night for a house, do you think maybe they might have a party? They're spending that kind of money. So do you think they might have lights on at 3 o'clock in the morning? Do you think there might be loud music? Do you think that's hurting the lifestyle of the person next door? Well, what can she do? She doesn't have as much money as the guy that owns the house. Then to further complicate it, as you go up and down the beaches, there are some houses that are grandfathered in, so the rentals are legal. And some are grandfathered in, so even if you tear down the house and build a $9 million mansion on there, it's still allowed to be rented that way. So just think of what that does to the 66 little quaint families that live up and down in those 66 houses. And shouldn't those prices just go up more and more and more? No.
How would an agent know all that stuff?
How would an agent know all that stuff? They would tune in here every Tuesday from 4 o'clock, and the guy with the house that is 20,000 feet may come in here and give us his position on it. And the neighbor may come in here too, but then we're going to have checks at the door, security and all that stuff. But okay, so that is the area in 27 miles that has the most potential serenity along the beaches, that would be the place that you would want people to live in until you knew what was going on there. And we don't know what the outcome's going to be. Now, when we talk about the different areas that are zoned for short-term rentals versus long-term rentals, do you think if you buy a single-family house in a short-term rental area, you might have to pay more money for that? Yes, because the income that it'll bring in will be different. So I'm hitting a lot of subjects that should show you that real estate is hyper-local, but mostly because of the internet, the entire world affects the hyper-local markets. So you have to know what Miami is doing to affect the prices over here, and why people are starting to move from Miami here, and why Miami has more condos that are committed to be built in Miami right now today than have been built in history. And why things are not selling in Miami. You got to know the real story. So next week we will talk about migration in the state of Florida and why the Pinellas County beaches have the best shot of making it through any recession that we have, and why they are the best place to move to in the state of Florida as an investment. And we think lifestyle. Okay? So thank you for joining in. Hopefully you got, this will be able to be reheard if you want. If you have a customer, and if something that I said makes sense to your customer, have them go on c21wizard.com. Tell them that Real Beach Talks is the name of this one. If you look at the other one about the 16 little towns and all that, that your customer can go on there. We don't know who's on there. They don't have to register. They don't have to do anything. And they don't have to buy anything. They don't have to do business with you, and they don't have to like me. So it's free. They're welcome to come in. We'll be much better in other weeks when we have, we're going to set it up so we have a headset and a microphone and all that other stuff, and it'll be something that'll be a little bit more interactive, so I don't have to talk all the time. So thank you very much, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.
All right, give me feedback, guys, because
I do have a question. I do have one question.
stop broadcasting.
I saw in this paper that they have a bird
sort of paradise.